This is Grievances Filed number 27, and lots of NFL news to be brought to you today. Lots. Can't wait. Let's enjoy it. LFG.
1, 2, 3. Treat the room like a playground. Climb aboard if you want a little more right away now. I'm trying to get up and go, so if you're moving too slow, you better lay down.
As mentioned, this is season 1, episode 27 of Grievances Filed. 27 for JC Jackson. But lately we've been talking about the XFL. Moving away from that a little bit. NFL, it's back. It's just back in the news cycle. The Combine's coming up tomorrow, Thursday. Today is Wednesday. They had official measurements come out for the players earlier this week, and that has had a lot of people clamoring. So we'll start off with that. Joe Burrow got his hands measured, and it was probably a little embarrassing for him. He is a football guy's guy. And he actually had to tweet out yesterday. He said, "Considering retirement after I was informed the football will be slipping out of my tiny hands, please keep me in your thoughts." So it's very evident that Joe Burrow is insecure about his tiny hands. He's not the only person insecure about his tiny hands. But in the draft, people place a weird emphasis on how big your hands are. 9 inches seems pretty standard to me. Some other notable quarterbacks, Jake Fromm, huge difference, absolutely huge difference between him and Joe Burrow. Fromm was at 8 inches and 7/8 of an inch. So that could be make or break. Jalen Hurts had decently sized hands, 9 and 6/8 of an inch. Brian Lewerke, Michigan State quarterback, had gigantic hands, 10 and 5/8. Jordan Love had 10.5. And Shea Patterson, quarterback of Michigan, had 9 and 3/8. Nate Stanley had 10, and Tua Tagovailoa on his left hand, which really matters for him, is 10 inches. So Joe Burrow amongst the third smallest in his class. Only Kevin Davidson and Jake Fromm had smaller hands than him. So already off to a really bad start in the Combine. Joe Burrow probably should have trained a little more for this and prepared. He just didn't take it seriously. He was too busy smoking cigars after he won the national championship game. Coach O warned him not to. He said, "Take it easy on the cigars." And he just didn't. And, he could have been stretching out his hand muscles, just trying to get a little more flexibility in that hand. PFT commenter said that he gained an 1/8 of an inch on his hand length from a couple years ago. So he said it is possible for your hand to be able to grow. So Joe Burrow, he is thinking about retiring now after that. Interestingly enough, Chris Sims, who was in New England for a year, I believe, coaching, said that they have a threshold of minimum hand size, and I think it's around like 9 and 3/8 or 9.5 or something like that. So Joe Burrow would be off their big board. Even if Joe Burrow fell to them, New England would just refuse to take him. And I do see the point of needing big hands, especially if you're in New England or Burrow. Everyone thinks that he's going to go to Cincinnati, although I'll get more into that. Maybe he's not going to go to Cincinnati. Who knows? But Cincinnati, bad weather. He'll be playing there. He'll be playing in Cleveland. He'll be playing in Pittsburgh. He'll be playing in Baltimore for much of his season. He'll have inclement weather, and when you have a smaller hand, they say that the ball does not, it'll allow you to get more revolutions on the ball if you have a bigger hand, allow you to grip a little easier. But people go back and forth on whether that matters or not. Apparently, New England cares enough to have a threshold, or at least where they put some red marks next to your name if your hand's not big enough because of how cold it is there. But there are guys like Aaron Rodgers who doesn't have that huge of a hand, and he plays up in Green Bay, obviously, and he only fumbles, I think, 0.4 times per game, which is the same as Brady. So, does it really matter? Who knows? Aaron Rodgers, by the way, has 9.38 inches hands, so it is still bigger than Burrow. But another person coming in out of college, out of The Ohio State University, Chase Young, he's not going to work out. He is not working out at the NFL Combine. Interesting enough, I only thought that it was, a guy who had a tender hamstring or a quarterback who didn't want to show how bad he was, who is like definitely the number one pick, who doesn't work out at the draft. Chase Young, a defender, not working out. Interesting. But going back to Burrow for a second, he has been in the news recently for saying that, he doesn't want to, or being indifferent about going to the Bengals. He said, well, who knows if the Bengals are going to take me? They might fall in love with someone else. But he clarified yesterday when he spoke at the NFL Combine. They had press conferences. He didn't give any more reassurance. He said, the Bengals, they could fall in love with someone else. They could do that. So it doesn't sound like I get that he doesn't want to, count the eggs before they hatch or say that he's a Bengal, but it's not like he's really wanting the Bengals to pick him. It doesn't sound like that at all. But he also said that he's going to play for anyone who picks him. So Burrow's definitely not a guy who would pull an Elway or an Eli Manning and just decide not to go to the team that he was drafted by. Burrow, like I said, a guy's guy, football guy. His dad was a defensive coach, which is the strongest of the football guys guy. So Burrow's going to play. Nothing to worry about there. But who does want to play but might not be playing in the XFL is Johnny Manziel, who tweeted that he has interest in, becoming a part of the XFL. And then he immediately deleted his Twitter account right after. That is so strange. I don't have much reaction on that, just that I want to see Johnny Manziel play in the XFL. I want to see Tim Tebow play in the XFL. And I want to see Colin Kaepernick play in the XFL. And maybe Gronk. If Gronk doesn't want to come back to the NFL and get hurt, sure, bring him into the XFL. Maybe I was going to say Hernandez, but that chance is come and gone. I think Hernandez really would have thrived in the XFL. He would have liked it. I could smell him on the DC Defenders. That's the team that's calling his name. DC Defenders lost, by the way, last week. In case you keep count, they're 2-1 now. I had them as my championship favorite. But yeah, Johnny Manziel, weird that he deleted his account. Ben Roethlisberger, Big Ben, was seen on video, and I think it was someone like in his camp that actually posted the video because it looked like he wasn't even. It looked like he was meant to have a video recording him, and he was in like a high school gym or something like that, throwing what looked to be a middle school football, and everyone's like, "Oh, Big Ben's throwing again." But it was like one of those balls that Andrew Luck used when he was trying to recover from his multitude of injuries. And everyone's like, oh my God, Andrew Luck's using like a high school football. That's what it looked like in Big Ben's hand. So who knows how he's doing with his elbow issues. Although there was controversy between Sunday Night Football, Michelle Tafoya, and Ben Roethlisberger because Ben had told Michelle Tafoya that he would shave his beard, or at least trim it, whatever it is, once he started throwing a football. Michelle Tafoya tweeted, like with the eye emoji, saying like, hey, Big Ben, you're throwing, and you haven't shaved. Liar. So I guess Big Ben is now a liar, and that should be very newsworthy. Big Ben, liar, but I don't think that that's the first time that someone would say that about him. And that's all I have for Big Ben. But, of course, who do we need to talk about? Tom Brady. Bruce Arians said that he would pick up the phone to try and get a Tom Brady. He also said that about Phillip Rivers too. And then with Brady, his agent, Don Yee, is going to meet with New England at the NFL Combine. So that could be, the Patriots could have a good idea on whether or not they will get their quarterback back for the next year and probably the year after that. That's big. We might have some leaks of information after the Combine. That is probably the most important thing of this Combine. Not who does well or who doesn't. It's how the meeting of Don Yee and the Patriots go at the Combine. So, more about the NFL. They've been having meetings pretty much very often about the collective bargaining agreement that needs to be agreed upon by the executives, and then the players sign off on it. But some newsworthy details about what's going on with the CBA. And by the way, the proposal was voted down 4-6 or 6-4, whichever way you want to look at it. And then it was revised to be, I think, 7-3, I believe. I don't know the intricacies of that, but I do know the intricacies of the collective bargaining agreement. Basically, everyone knows by now, 17th game. Also, playoff expansion. So I think that they're trying to have only the number 1 seeds get buys, whoever makes the playoffs, and then that means that 2 has to play on the opening playoff weekend, and they played the 7. I don't know. I feel like people wouldn't like that. I like the playoffs the way they are right now. 17th game. If players don't want it, I don't know. Then it'd be weird. What's interesting enough with the 17th game is how you would have to compensate the players who already have a contract for the 17th game. Initially, the league had said that if you make more than $4.25 million per year, then you're capped at $250,000 for that 17th game. However, now they're kind of going back and forth on it, saying, oh, no, you can negotiate higher than the cap. And no one knows what the hell is going on with that. But that would be how players get paid for the 17th game. Also, more with the player personnel. With having 17 games, teams would now be able to activate a third player off the injured reserve during the season. I know that could have probably changed some New England Patriot season. They activated Isaiah Wynn and N'Keal Harry off the injured reserve this season. And I know that I'm not sure the status on players like James Devlin or Steven Gostkowski, but even if they were ready to come off the IR, they would not be allowed to because currently it is at 2 players to be activated off the injured reserve. They're proposing now to have 3, which obviously would help with having a 17th game. Teams can shuttle a few players back and forth from the practice squad, which would then expand to 14 players in 2022 to the active roster and back without having to waive them. So when you bring or put a player on the practice squad, I think they have to clear waivers, and they would get rid of that. Basically allows you to have more of a farm system. And they're also saying that player discipline for off-the-field violation would still be heard by a neutral arbitrator, and then appeals would go to the commissioner, which I'm not going to get into this now, but of course was the downfall of Deflategate. Guess what happens when you appeal? It goes right to the person who gave you that suspension in the first place, Tom Brady. But Russell Wilson spoke out about what he thought about the collective bargaining agreement. He said, quote, the NBA and MLB are doing it right. Players come first. All players deserve the same. We should not rush the next 10 years for today's satisfaction. I vote no. End quote. So Russell Wilson, obviously not happy with the CBA right now. I think they need to figure out this whole playoff thing and the 17 games and how you get paid for the 17th game. Very interesting, although if the $250,000 cap is indeed true, then it would really only affect players who make more than $4.25 million per year. But now they're saying that they can negotiate a higher salary. So, Going back to the combine, which